Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you to participate to this second webinar that organized by the ESN, European Short Sea Shipping Network, which is the network of all the SPC, the Short Sea Shipping Promotion Center of Europe, this year, 2022, with the Italian presidency. In this year, we would like to promote a debate with the stakeholders to discuss the main issues about short sea shipping and motorways of the sea. In particular, we organized a first webinar which took place on the 25th of May, where we discuss how to promote eco-incentives for sustainable multimodal transport. During this webinar, we obtained an overview of the incentive schemes adopted by each member states in the network of ESN for multimodal maritime transport, road sea, rail sea, and also island waterways and sea. And so we illustrated the main stakeholder of the maritime sector. The second webinar of today, we organized about another important issue, which is the digitalization and the environmental sustainability. We are going to discuss today about how digitalization technologies and environmental sustainability laws and regulatory could help or could also support some particular efforts for stakeholders to promote the short sea shipping and motorways of the sea. In this web, we have a very good agenda. After the institutional welcome speech of Dottoressa Barberi of the Italian Ministry of Infrastructure and Sustainability Mobility, we have the presentation of the paper of our ESN network by Saffo Simantoni, Director of Hellenic Short Sea Ship Owners Association for the SPC Greece. After this, we have the intervention of Marija Janeva, Project Management Coordinator for the Maritime Sector of European Climate, Infrastructure and Environmental Executive Agency, SINEA. After a little break, we have the roundtable with the very important relevant stakeholders. Matteo Catani, Chief Executive Officer of GNV, Dario Bocchetti, Head of Energy Saving and Innovation of Grimaldi Group, Emanuele Gesù, Head of Small Scale LNG of SNAM, Stefano De Marco, General Manager Sales Market Innovation of Wärtsilä, Paul Broster, EU Policy Advisor of the Irish Maritime Development Office, and Elias Ifantis, Senior Scientist, Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute. So a very great debate, a very great roundtable. We are very happy of the collaboration of all the SPC, of the stakeholders in the preparation of the paper and the organization of this webinar. So thank you all for the participation and for the contribution. And I leave the stage to Dottoressa Barberi for the welcome speech by the Italian Ministry of Transport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benevolo. Good afternoon to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you for joining us today in this important event. And I also wish to extend you the greetings of my director, Maria Teresa Di Matteo, from the Directorate General for Maritime Transport of our ministry. I wish to thank RAM for the effort in developing the 2022 ESN program within the Italian presidency, which will focus on the development of short sea shipping with an outlook towards 2027. Given the great importance of short sea shipping for Italy, as a representative of the Ministry of Sustainable Infrastructure and Mobility, I would like to thank the ESN and RAM for the organization of the webinar, which will be as stated before, focus on the digitalization and the sustainability of the maritime sector. The development of a multimodal, smart and sustainable transport sector is a priority of our ministry, which follows all related issues contributing to reaching the targets of the Green Deal. The European Commission has decided to mobilize over 1,000 billion euros in the next decade to reach those targets. 30% of the 2021-2027 EU budget and of the Next Generation EU has been dedicated to green investments. Member States must use at least 37% of the resources of the Recovery and Resilience plans towards investments and reforms dedicating to reaching the Green Deal targets. In order to reach those targets, Italy is investing substantial funds through the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, in particular the National Complementary Plan, which, as the word suggests, is synergetic and complementary to the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, inserts cold ironing in the so-called Mission 3, Infrastructure for Sustainable Mobility. The National Cold Ironing Plan, which is currently being finalized, analyzes the regulatory context, the technological and economic scenario, and European best practices, and illustrates investment and reforms to be implemented to ensure the success of the investments. Furthermore, a ministerial decree of last August, with this decree, an overall value of 700 million euros was destined to the implementation of cold ironing interventions. The same decree identifies the port system authorities and the region as beneficiaries and implementers. Moreover, the complementary plan has allocated a total of around 220 million euros in the 2021-2026 period to reimbursing no more than 50% of the total costs for the realization of LNG plants on the Italian territory, with particular reference to the maritime sector. And also stations, bunkering vessels will be eligible as well. According to the EU Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, mobility must not only be green, but also smart. It is clear that digitalization can help achieve those targets by increasing transport and logistic efficiency. The European Commission is working on the digital transition, which will benefit all sectors and will focus on investment in digital skills, protection from cyber threats, strengthening the responsibility of online platforms by proposing a Digital Service Act, and clarifying rules for online services. And most importantly, use technology to help Europe become climate neutral by 2050 and reduce the digital sector's carbon emissions. So the ESN can give its contribution, involving public and private stakeholders, in the discussion and debate on important issues such as digitalization, sustainability, connectivity of the transport sector. ESN can contribute to revitalize the discussion on the future of short sea shipping, outlining its role in the framework of the challenges that the transport sector needs to face in order to comply with the objectives of the Green Deal and of the European Commission's Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, while maintaining at the same time its competitiveness. So I wish to thank you, every one of you, for participating, for your attention. And now I give back the floor to Francesco Benevolo, Director of RAM. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura, for this introduction. And now the presentation of the updated proposal of the European Short Sea Shipping Network position paper about the main information technologies and green solutions adopted in the maritime transport sector by member states involved in the ESN by Safo Simantoni, Director of Hellenic Short Sea Ship Owners Association, as our member for SPC Greece. Thank you. Mrs. Simantoni, you have the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I want first to welcome you to the second webinar and thank SPC Italy for organizing this webinar, as well as the first one, and all the SPCs separately for their contribution. I will present the main IT technologies and green solutions adopted in the maritime transport sector by member states involved in the ESN. Now, due to too many information from SPCs, member states, I want to make it as short as possible, and anyone who wants more information and study analysis from the presentation can see it over the web ESN site. Okay, so let's start with Green Deal, which provides a roadmap with actions to boost the efficient use of resources by moving to a clean circular economy, stop climate change, revert biodiversity loss, and cut pollution. In particular, short sea shipping will have a strong role in reaching the objectives of the EU Green Deal for the EU to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050. To support the transition of countries most dependent on carbon-intensive economies, the Green Deal requires a huge investment which will transform into investment opportunities. The multi-annual financial framework for 21-27, then next generation EU, will be a great opportunity to create a wave of green investments with a budget of 2018 total trillion euros. EU sustainable and smart mobility strategy lays the foundation for how the EU transport system can achieve its green and digital transformation and become more resilient to future crises. The objectives are sustainable mobility, smart mobility, resilient mobility. Next is shaping Europe's digital future. Yes, the next slide, not this one. Yes, this is one, the shaping Europe's digital future. The European Commission is working on the digital transition, which will benefit all sectors and will focus on the following: invest in digital skills for all Europeans, protect people from cyber threats, ensure artificial intelligence is developed in ways that respect people's rights and earn their trust, accelerate the rollout and ultra-fast broadband throughout the EU, reduce the digital sector's carbon emissions, and so on. We're going to the next slide, which is short sea shipping 2017 challenges and opportunities. ESN, the road towards short sea shipping in 2027. ESN conducted 2 webinars already, and the position paper, which will be shared in the European Commission in December 2022. And now we are going to review, next slide, the main IT technologies adopted in the maritime transport sector by member states involved in the ESN. Let's start with Croatia. Best practices in the port of Ploče. The regulation in Port of Ploče, the regulation of the unique interface for formalities in maritime traffic establishes the conditions for the coordinated delivery and exchange of documents and data on maritime transport through a single interface for formalities in maritime transport, with the aim of reducing the administrative burden and improving the quality of public services by standardizing and rationalizing the official application procedure based on the principle of one-time delivery of documents and data. Next slide is Cyprus. ISEF. Cyprus ISEF model. The ISEF model aims at providing reliable estimation of ship energy consumption for propulsion and power generation based on actual and near real-time data. Pankia, the general objective of the Pankia project is to develop a service for stakeholders in the shipping industry. And Sea of Experience, the Sea of Experience project aims at bridging the gap between educational options available in relation to the marine and maritime sectors and labor market needs. And in Finland, there are strategic initiatives in the field of autonomous shipping. The One Sea Ecosystem Initiative is a strategic combination of top research, state-of-the-art information, technology, and business, with the aim to create an environment suitable for autonomous ships by 2025. Next slide is Ireland. The Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Act 2021 commits Ireland to a 51% reduction in emissions by 2030 and zero emissions by 2050. The Climate Action Plan, published on November 21, sets out how Ireland will take advantage of the potential of at least 30 GW of offshore wind power to achieve these targets. 65 million euros National Challenge Fund established under the government's National Recovery and Resilience Plan will address key national challenges in the areas of green transition and digital transformation. And now Italy, investment plans and best practices for the digital transition. The Italian recovery, digitalization of the logistic chain. The Italian Recovery and Resilience Plan, Italia Domani, foresees a total of 250 million euros for the digitalization of the logistic chain in the 21-27 period. Port community systems, 45 million euros have been allocated within the Italian Recovery and Resilience plans for the implementation of PCS and ICT systems in order to reach the following target by June 2024, which is at least 70% of the systems for the port operators of the single system port authorities must be interoperable and compatible with each other and with the national logistics platform. Intermodal fast corridors. Fast corridors are immaterial infrastructures that allow customs procedures to be carried out not at the container terminal, but at inland logistic node, road and rail. The digital twin in the port of Livorno or a terminal is a virtual representation that serves as the real-time digital counterpart of the physical port or terminal. And let's see what is happening in Portugal. Nexus Innovation Agenda develops the shared vision and innovation roadmap for ports and logistic ecosystem. Development, exploitation of a portfolio of technologically advanced products and services. Open data collaboration platform for multimodal transport collaboration. Involvement of all end users involved in multimodal port operations, etc. Logistics Single Window, LSW. It's a powerful tool to support the physical and digital corridors over the ports hinterland and foreland. It also ensures end-to-end supply chain integration by gradually connecting to the foreland and last mile operations. Drones, as well equipped with 5G transmission technology and CCTV cameras, are used in the ports of Lixoes and Viana do Castelo and Douro to improve the awareness of pilots during entry and exit maneuvers. Now we are moving forward to main green solutions adapted in the maritime transport sector by member states involved in the ESN. Croatia. The Croatian strategy for hydrogen up to 2050 emphasizes the advantages of developing the potential related to the hydrogen economy and is aligned with the goals of the European Hydrogen Strategy. The Integrated National Energy and Climate Plan for the period 2030 builds on existing national strategies and plans. It provides an overview of the current energy system and the energy and climate policy. The Susport project will strengthen the institutional capacity and cross-border governance of the Adriatic ports of Italy and Croatia. Green solutions, strategies, pilot actions, and best practices for Cyprus. Sea Change 2030, strategic vision for Cyprus shipping. The Shipping Deputy Ministry of the Republic of Cyprus announced its new strategy for the shipping sector of the country. The strategy covers 35 actions in total, revolving around 3 core pillars: sustainable, maritime cybersecurity, rewards and incentives for greening and sustainable investments. Bio CH4 to market. Founded on innovative and breakthrough technologies, the proposed pilot action seeks to prove up to 80% reductions in life cycle greenhouse gas emissions through the use of biomethane as an advanced marine drop-in biofuel in comparison to current status quo. And ZEST, autonomous zero emissions transporter, design and manufacture an innovative vessel which at its first version will be fully electric and serve numerous purposes. In Finland, in Port of Helsinki, cold ironing onshore power. Environmental solutions at the Port of Helsinki include also the possibility to discharge wastewater directly into the municipal sewer system, energy-efficient LED lamps, and LAR panels installed on the roof of the passenger corridor. In Port of Turku, an automatic vessel mooring system based on vacuum technology was installed as part of the project Next Gen Link 2017-2021. And in Port of Kokkola, the project Power for Future, financed by EU CEF, will focus on sustainable power transports. The environmental innovations by the Finnish ship owners, reduction of emissions, choice of fuel technology. Greece, All Smart Adriatic Ionian Small Port Network. This program aims to develop a common port network in the Adriatic Ionian area based on the concept of intelligent, green and integrated ports, setting new green routes that connect regional small ports. Ireland. National programs launched in 2021 for the green transition and digital transformation will build on success in motorways of the sea and EU programs. 65 million national challenge fund established under the government's National Recovery and Resilience Plan will address key national challenges in the areas of green transition and digital transformation. International Fast and Secure Trade Lane is a project co-financed by the CEF program 2014-20 with the goal to provide maritime ports and the logistic actors of the Moss route between the 10T core port of Dublin and the comprehensive port of Cherbourg, which is an IFTSL toolkit proving the existing route. Italy, the strategic investment plans and other initiatives. Cold ironing plan is one of the measures indicated by the 2014-94 directive, which establishes a common framework of rules for building an infrastructure for alternative fuels in the European Union to minimize dependence on oil and mitigate the environmental impact of the transport sector. The plan involves all the port system authorities. Green ports. The Italian Recovery and Resilience Plan includes in its M3C2 the Green Ports project, which involves the 9 Italian Southern North System port authorities as actuators aiming to make port activities sustainable and compatible with urban port contexts through the financing and interventions aimed at improving the efficiency and reducing energy consumption of port structures and activities. LNG funding. The complementary plan to the Italian Recovery and Resilience Plan M3C2 has allocated 219 million euros in the 21-26 period to reimbursing no more than 50% of the total cost for realization of LNG plants on the Italian territory, including the maritime sector and the refueling stations in ports. The GAIN initiative, if it's right, GAIN or GAIN initiative has been launched with the aim of conceiving, defining, prototyping, testing, validating, and deploying in the 2015-2030 period the Italian alternative fuels infrastructure network for transport. This program mainly addresses LNG as an alternative fuel for both maritime and road transport. And Portugal, the ports of Aveiro and Lixoes, the maritime logistics chain supports 90% of the global movement for goods worldwide, and as such ports are important nodes that could make a significant contribution to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. The Port of Aveiro, as a medium-sized port, has already initiated its action plan for the energy transition, having established as goals the reduction of greenhouse gases in 55% by 30, 75% by 40, and 100% by 2050. In Port of Lixoes, the implementation of the one shore power supply system will allow ships to be connected to the inland network and reduce noise and greenhouse gas emissions. The use of alternative green fuels with little or no environmental impact, such as biofuels, hydrogen, methanol, ammonia, is encouraged. As well as photovoltaic panels capable of generating +6 GWh per year have been installed together with 2 wind turbines capable of generating +10 GWh per year. And I want to repeat that everyone who needs more information about each SPC and their activities can go to the website, ESN website, to find and study more. Concluding, all member states are implementing sectorial policies through their national RRF plans and other EU funding programs such as CEF, Horizon Europe, and INDEREG, in order to face the climate and digital challenges, reaching the goals of carbon neutrality by 2050 and the intermediate goals of 2030 as indicated by the Green Deal and enshrined in the EU climate law. International cooperation is the key to reach the set targets as demonstrated by the international cooperation projects and best practices illustrated. Digitalization and environmental sustainability are strongly interconnected, have many synergies as indicated by the EU Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy. Increasing the use of short-sea shipping and the modal shift from road to sea are essential factors in reaching the environmental targets set for 2030-2050. Incentive schemes can also play a very important role. Thank you for your attention.
And as we could see, there are a lot of initiatives or different initiatives about digitalization, environment, sustainability, short sea shipping, ports, and infrastructure for each member states. So we have to discuss about also the costs of this transition and the opportunities, because we are all involved in a sort of revolution, that the seventh revolution of transport, as someone called this. Thank you, Safo, and the stage to Marija Janeva, Project Management Coordinator for the Maritime Sector of European Climate, Infrastructure, Environmental Executive Agency, to say something, to say us something about funding opportunities for 2021-27 for the digitalization and environmental sustainability.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, super. I'll just hopefully will manage to share successfully the presentation. Please let me know if you see my presentation.
Yes, it's great.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Maria Janeva. I'm working at CINEA as Project Management Coordinator in the Motorways of the Sea team. And we are part of the CEF Transport department. It is my pleasure today to present you the specific opportunities under CEF2 for digitalization and environmental sustainability under CEF2. But before going into that level of detail, I would like to present you an overview of the funding opportunities within CINEA. As you can see on this slide, CINEA since April 2021 has received new mandates.
Oh, sorry for the organization. We can see the slide. So if it's possible to have the same system with Greece, please, for the organization.
You can't see the slide, okay.
Yeah, if they can share the slide for you and you see them when they have to change the slide, please. Thank you.
Okay, I will stop sharing. Yes, we can go to the next slide. Yes. So the previous slide, please. Yes, this one. So the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency has changed mandate since April 2021, when many other programs that were part of different agencies within European Commission were transferred for management and implementation under CINEA. So CINEA is now managing more than 55 billion of budget spread across different programs, with staff number that has increased from 300 to 500, and until 2027, the projections are that the agency will grow even further. What we are managing are the European Maritime, Fisheries and Agricultural Fund, then the LIFE program, the Innovation Fund, the Horizon Europe program, the Cluster 5 related to climate, energy and mobility, then the Connecting Europe facility, for transport and energy part only, the renewable energy financing mechanism and the just transition mechanism, more specifically the public sector loan facility pillar. As you can see, it is portfolio that is really contributing to the European Green Deal. The next slide, please. Before we go to the CEF transport for 2020, for the period 2021 to 2027, I would like to just present you here a brief overview of what we have done under CEF Transport 1 program, covering the period 2014 to 2020, We have financed overall more than 1,000 actions, allocated 23 billion euro of CEF grant for more than 50 billion euro of investment, private and public. Within the maritime ports, we have financed 152 actions taking place in 119 ports, 22 member states, and the allocated EU contribution was 1.5 billion euro. As you know, there are still a number of actions that are ongoing. So these figures at the end might change when we have the final overview of the success of the program and the financial absorption. Nevertheless, we can proudly say that it's a significant number of actions that have been financed. The next slide, please. With the new multi-annual financial framework, the budget for CEF for CEF2 is 33.7 billion euro. Out of that, 25 billion is allocated to transport, 5.8 billion to energy, and digital 2 billion euro. The objectives are very straightforward: developing and modernizing the trans-European transport network in the field of transport, energy, and digital in order to push the decarbonization commitments. And of course, there is more accent, more emphasis on the synergies between the sectors. The next slide, please. The allocated budget for CEF Transport aims to contribute to achievement of the Green Deal and the sustainable and smart mobility strategy targets. I'm not going to repeat them. We are very well aware of which are those, and it's important that the allocated funding will contribute to achieve not only to develop the network, but to develop it in a sustainable and smart way. So 60% of the financial envelope will be dedicated to the Union climate targets, and this will be tracked through a specific methodology that is being developed at the EU level. And for each percentage contribution of each project will be allocated to these projects, and it will be able we will be able in a coordinated manner to report the exact share of funding contributing to each climate target. Also, the novelty under CEF2 transport is that climate proving is necessary to be submitted. Information on climate proving is necessary to be submitted as part of all projects, which are subject to environmental impact assessment. The next slide, please. In order to strengthen the environmental contribution dimension of CEF2 in the area of transport, mitigation measures aiming at decreasing the environmental impact and preserving the biodiversity are eligible, which was not the case under CEF1. These are, for example, reforestation, aqueducts, infrastructure components that allow continuity of the natural habitat, noise protection barriers, and so on and so forth. Of course, it has to be demonstrated that these mitigation measures are needed in order to mitigate any negative effects arising from implementation of the CEF projects. Also, focus is being put on energy, synergies with energy or digital investments, which can be up to 20% of the total eligible costs. Example of this can be on-site renewable energy generation, for example, or generation of renewable energy using the wind at the seaside, or using the wave strength. The next slide. This is maybe to many of you well-known overview of all the calls and topics. The first one, it is based on the first one. We are heading towards the second one, which will be published in mid-September. But on this slide, I just wanted to present and circled with green the topics which are relevant for the maritime sector. As you know, in the past, we had one call with few priorities and objectives. Now we have more calls and different topics. This is due to the specific setup and location of the network, the budget envelopes, and the type of the actions, and also the new system called e-grants that we are using in order to publish and to manage and implement the project. So as you can see, There are topics under sustainable mobility, under smart mobility, under the core general envelope, and under comprehensive general envelope, as well as the cohesion envelope. What is here grayed out, but it's also open to the maritime sector, are the opportunities under alternative fuel facility. The next slide, please. The intention of this slide and a couple of and few others that follow is just to present you the funding opportunities focused on the maritime sector. So this is not exhaustive list of what we are financing under maritime ports topics, for example, but I have really focused within the interest of the event today on which are the type of investments that can be financed under CEF2 transport and which are at the same time contributing to sustainable transport and greening and digitalizing the transport. So under the maritime ports topics, interventions related to facilitation of the maritime access in order, for example, the bigger vessels to enter the ports are being financed. Basic port infrastructure is also part of the priorities, but with focus on infrastructure which is needed in order to develop low emission multimodal solutions and to develop facilities linked to offshore wind farms. Short site electricity supply is also one of the areas that is being financed. Port reception facilities for waste from ships and rail connections within and outside the port. Speaking of short site electricity supply, I would like to emphasize that it's the only part of alternative fuels that is eligible under maritime ports, under motorways of the sea, and under AFI facility. All the other alternative fuel types are eligible only under alternative fuels facility. This is, as you know, different versus CEF1 program. The next slide, please. Under the motorways of the sea, which is still as a separate topic, it is still as a separate dimension. Everything that I have mentioned under the maritime ports can be also financed under the motorways of the sea. However, here there is one strong eligibility condition that there must be involvement of at least one core port and one core or comprehensive port from at least 2 member states, and to demonstrate that the investments are needed for upgrade of existing of establishment of a new short sea shipping link. Only under that condition, sustainable investments in rail connections, short site electricity, ICT platforms can be financed. There is also another possibility that is stimulating development of ICT platforms, for example, or ice-breaking facilities, which are not linking to a specific port, but are benefiting a wider maritime community. The funding rate is 50%, regardless if it is works or studies. And this is one of the instruments to attract more interest, to submit more projects in the motorways, in the area of the motorways of the sea. The next slide, please. Another possibility for digitalization, indeed more related to the needs of the member states, are investments in European maritime single window environment, which are specific topic within the CMOB-GEN call. The investment can be financed up to 50% for adaptation of the maritime national single windows. On the next slide, we can see also that investments are open, or possibilities for grants are open for vessel traffic monitoring and information system, which are also financed at rate of 50% regardless if it is works or studies. Then on the next slide, I have selected a part of topic under roads, railroad terminals, and multimodal logistics platform, which can be also eligible for the maritime community, especially for the maritime ports. And here I'm mainly referring to multimodal logistics platform or combined transport transshipment points within a core or comprehensive port. But in addition to that, there is under this topic also opportunity to apply for clean transshipment equipment, as long as this transshipment equipment runs on electricity or hydrogen. So this is the acquisition of the fixed equipment is also eligible if it is based on a zero emission fuel. So this is really an opportunity that the maritime ports specifically can use, or maritime operators or other maritime stakeholders operating within a port can use in order to stimulate the deployment of such clean transshipment equipment. Under the intelligent transport services topics, there is also possibility presented on the next slide to invest in deployment of ITS infrastructure and services within the ports. And here we speak mainly about digitalization of port infrastructure, solutions such as access gates, so investments in the software needed in order to ensure license plate recognition, weighting of containers or vehicles in motion, and so on and so forth. Of course, only the software part is eligible, but not the superstructure part, the gates, access points, and so forth. The funding is 50%. On the next slide, you will see that under data processing and sustainable and safe mobility cluster, there is also possibility for getting fund in order to create system for collection, management, data sharing, and dissemination of up-to-date transport, traffic, and travel data for all transport modes, including the maritime transport. To my knowledge, under the past call, we have not received any proposal under data processing and sustainable and safe mobility cluster from the maritime stakeholders. The funding rate is also very attractive. It's 50% for works and for studies. Also, on the next slide, you can see the funding opportunities under the same calls, safe and mobility, safe mobility transport. For the first time, we are open for investments in transport infrastructure resilience in order to improve the ability of the transport infrastructure to mitigate and to recover or to adapt to disruptions created by the climate change and natural disasters. We hope that we will see more of these proposals in the coming calls. The funding rates are 30% for works and 50% for studies, and it's also open under the cohesion envelope. The next slide, please. This is the slide dedicated on the alternative fuel infrastructure facility. In the interest of the time, I will not focus too much on details. The presentation will be shared with all of you. The intention here is to, with the alternative fuels facility, to centralize all projects related to alternative fuels and to have one applicable funding rate and to have the same conditions regardless if it is about alternative fuel investments in maritime ports or roads or in different transport modes. The next slide, please. The relevant part of the alternative fuel facility for the maritime stakeholders is part 2, where there are possibilities to receive funding for investments in electricity and hydrogen for maritime vessels, port vehicles, and equipment, and also for LNG refueling stations supplying maritime vessels. On the next slide, we have presented the timetables and the deadlines. There are different cutoff dates, so the setup is different than the classical CEF transport calls. We have already went through the first and the second cutoff date. Second one is not finalized yet, but it will be soon. And the third cutoff date will be on 10th of November. Under the alternative fuels facility, the next slide, please. The funding rates are higher for electricity and for hydrogen, 30% and 50% under general and cohesion envelope respectively, and are 10% and 20% under LNG, which is considered not zero, but low emission solution. The next slide, please. For under the zero emission solutions, funding is open for recharging stations supplying maritime vessels within, of course, maritime ports. And the infrastructure that is eligible is onshore power supply, the necessary grid connection, if it is needed in order to establish the onshore power supply, and the investments on the short shipping vessels is eligible as long as it is demonstrated that an initial number of vessels is needed to kickstart the use of the supported recharging infrastructure. The same is applicable for the port equipment and vehicles, as long as they can run on electricity, could qualify for funding under AFIF. On the next slide, I have presented the facts related to the projects for deployment of hydrogen. We haven't received any so far, to my knowledge, and at least not under the first cutoff date, but the principle is the same. So we would like to finance projects for deploying infrastructure within the maritime ports, including port vehicles and equipment, supplying also hydrogen to inland waterways and maritime vessels. And when it comes to the vessels, to the investments on the vessels, it is really limited to the initial number of vessels that is needed in order to start using these investments. And also the eligibility of the costs is limited to the difference between the fossil fuel vessel and the zero emission vessel as regards the propulsion system. And all that has to be, of course, demonstrated clearly in the proposal. With regard to the LNG slide, which is presented, LNG investments presented on the next slide, what is open for investment or funding is supplying infrastructure in 20 maritime and inland vessels, storage facilities for transport, including the bunkering vessels. But of course, if there are hydrogen and electricity proposals, priority will be given to the LNG alternative fuel. I have few other slides, but related to the evaluation process. But in the interest of time, I will not go into details. I will just like to give the last message that before, for the maritime community, it's very important, as you can see, that there are different possibilities, opportunities, but before deciding on what you want to do in your project, check under which exact topic the project fits the best, because very often good projects are being submitted under topics which are not relevant and could not finance the proposed investments. And preparing good, complete proposal is really key, of a good quality, is really key factor to receive the funding. So thank you very much for your attention. That was all from my side. I'm open for your questions.
Thank you very much, Marija, for this very complete presentation. It's very interesting to see all the initiatives that we have in the member states and the effort, the great effort that European institutions are giving to promote this effort and to give to these investments a direction and some concrete objectives for the next year in terms of sustainability and digitalization and the interrelation of systems and sectors. So to recover the delay, we propose. Sorry, no, that's it. Okay. To recover the delay we have, I propose to postpone question and answers to the end of this debate, and so to open the discussion of the roundtable with our stakeholders, strategic stakeholders we have today. because we know the limits of webinars, so it's very difficult to discuss not together in the same place. But about digitalization, about sustainability, there are a lot of things to discuss, because we are looking for a great revolution, as I told before, in transport, with energy issues, technologies issues, and so on. Also services, like, for example, mobility as a service, and so on. So we are trying to better comprehend the concrete effort that we have to put on the table by the member states, the institutions, but also the costs that these systems, new systems, have for the stakeholders, because sustainability and new technologies for the stakeholders to update the services and to update systems with the new technology and new laws. So I would like to start the debate with Mr. Catani, who is the CEO of Grandi Navi Veloci, and I would like to ask to Matteo, what will be the impact on the market of ambitious environmental targets, including the time frame to achieve them, with reference to the recent Fit for 55 package and the IMO carbon index indicator? We know that recently Salvatori and Rina presented some papers, some studies about this. So which is your opinion about this?
Many thanks for inviting me today, and good afternoon all, and many thanks for the question. So the upcoming regulations, I would say, not only CII and EXI regulations, but all the upcoming regulations are posing a lot of challenges for the industry. This transition to new alternative fuels is one of the first transitions in the history where the transition itself is pushed by incentive and disincentive set by regulators, and with no basic logistic or economical reasons. Indeed, the switch to new alternative fuels, for example, is completely responding to a push from the public opinion and the regulator, and not to a specific basic convenience of these new alternative fuels. And that poses, of course, a few challenges, and raises concern about its the real possibility to adopt those alternative fuels or alternative technologies without damaging the industry in some sense. We found with the analysis and the study made with Arena that the impact will be a major impact on, let's take it as an example, the short sea shipping services that the company I work for is providing. Why? Because the impact on our business would be significant. We don't have a clear picture on which kind of fuel or technology we may apply in the time framework that the regulations are providing to us, and therefore we still do not know what are the real investment that we can undergo. Let me make an example. There are players in the industry in the Med region which already decided to switch to LNG, for example, but in the last year, they are not using LNG, and they switched back to the previous marine diesel oil fuel. Why? Because the cost is simply not affordable. So they got, for example, an important incentive for the investment, but now they are not able to return those investments, and still they are not using the LNG. And that is a major concern. Why these kind of distortions happens? They happen because the technology is not widely available, and I mean, there are still a lot of discrepancy in the cost of the new technology compared to the previous one, and so that translates into a higher cost of the service, and which at the end leads to one of the two, or a damage for the ship owner who is providing the service, or a damage for the community that may benefit from that service, because now that service will be either, let's say, offered at a higher cost, or either offered with the same technology as before, so without any benefit in terms of reduced emissions. So that is a small example, but it is the situation that we are facing overall. We are talking about hydrogen, for example, but still the hydrogen is not available. So how we can invest as ship owners into that technology on a wider on a wide base, and create a real impact on the reduction of the emission, if that technology and moreover the supply of hydrogen is not widely available, and moreover and in many cases it's not only the supply of the fuels themselves, or the real availability of the technology themselves, is also a matter of practical regulation, operational regulation that are not available. So we are facing a very difficult situation where it's difficult to make a decision upon which is the technology that we have to invest on in order to be sustainable in the future. So what we, at the end, what we claim and what we believe is that the regulator should look into it more deeply, and trying to optimize the regulation by revising the timing of all those regulations. The CII is one, of course, and we are proposing a different schedule of application of those, more realistic, considering the real technologies that we can apply and invest upon. And the other regulation that should be revised in terms of schedule for at least is the ETS regulation. So the risk there is that the cost of the service will increase because of the additional cost per ton of fuel that is utilized, without really benefiting anyone in the system. Why? Because it is not clear how the funds would be used, and we believe that those funds should be reinvested to sustain in a much more important way the adoption of new technologies, or they should compensate for the higher cost due to those investments. And those are examples on how the regulator should look at the new regulations and coordinate them with the real option that the market is providing. And another important point that should be looked very carefully by the regulators at all levels, national, European, and international level, is really the impact of the new alternative fuels that we are considering. Let me make a last example, then I let others commenting on that. If you take the LNG is an alternative fuel that is considered a green one. Why? Because it reduces the emission during the combustion phase, so the propulsion phase, by 30% compared to traditional IFO fuel. That is true, but only during the propulsion phase. So during navigation, in reality, if we consider the whole life cycle of that fuel, and we consider extraction, transportation, cryogenization, I don't know to use the right word, but you understood. Then the cost of in terms of emission is really comparable to the traditional fuel. So the question is, why should we invest that much, even if there is an incentive attached to it, if there is no real benefit for the communities in terms of CO2 reduction? So there are many concerns, time frame, coordination between regulation, and real impact on the reduction of emissions that have to be considered by the regulator in the upcoming months.
Thank you very much, Matteo. And you underlines the deep uncertainty we have, not only with technologies and sustainable environmental new regulation, but also the effect and the cost. So the cost benefit analysis of these technologies. So it's real that we have a lot of questions about sustainability and digitalization. We often speak about digitalization and sustainability as a mantra. We have to be sustainable and digital, but we have to reflect, to better reflect on the content of this digitalization and this sustainability, the technologies and the cost benefit analysis of these technologies.
If I may add one comment, there's an interesting article that from the Today Sole 24 Ore, which is written by 3 professors who are knowledgeable upon the matter, who are talking about all the possibilities in terms of CO2 reduction and in general emission reductions. And the conclusion is that they came up with is, we have to better look at it. The regulator have to better look at it. Why? Because the risk, if we talk about, for example, the short sea shipping, is to, in reality, incentivize a back model shift. So to disincentivize what proved to be beneficial for the communities in terms of overall CO2 reduction, which is the motorways of the seas, incentivize because of the higher cost and because of all the operative restriction that we will face in the upcoming future, and then to push back trucks on the roads, which is not the objective of the system, I guess, and not even ours.
Yes, thank you very much. And we would like to have the opinion of another strategic ship owner represented by Mr. Dario Bocchetti, which he is currently the head of Grimaldi Group Corporate Energy Saving Division, which deal with aspects related to energy performance, research and development, innovation and ship design. So, Mr. Bocchetti, which which is your opinion about the impact on the market of these digital and environmental sustainability technologies, the time frame, and so on? What do you think about? Give the stage, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benevolo, and thanks for the nice invitation and for previous speeches. Firstly, I would like to say that we share most of the comments already done from Matteo Catani from GMV. We think that this issue of unclear regulation is for sure posing some difficulties in terms of this huge investment that we have to face. So I will not repeat what has been already said, but I will try to focus on some other topics and showing a few slides on support for that. One second. So if this is on the screen. Okay, as to the organization, because I cannot see the chat anymore, if you can see the screen.
Yes, it's okay.
It's perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So basically, for who doesn't know us, the Grimaldi Group, we own about 130 vessels, and we have 10 under construction and another 10 under design. We operate in the segment of the ro-ro and ro-packs mainly, including some con-ro, as you can see on this yellow vessel, carrying some container as well. But mostly we operate in Europe on the short sea shipping network, where we are very, very active in 25 ports, and we have 90 agencies and so on. As today we speak about short sea shipping, of course, we focus on the short sea, and we have in the group the brand of Grimaldi as well as the brand of Minoan, Finlines, and Transmed, operating between Spain and the island of Balearic. So as the speech today, it is regarding the sustainability and the environmental approach. We were asked to say what can be done on board the vessel to improve the energy saving or the efficiency of even an existing vessel or a new vessel operating on the short sea. Because as we like to say, despite of so many alternative fuels that have to come, and for sure we have to go towards the decarbonization, so no fossil fuel in the future. But for today, where still it is very difficult to make a long trip of more than 400 miles in full electric. Unfortunately, today, as we will see, it is still not possible for such large vessels, because a RoPax vessel on the motorways of the sea is a vessel that can carry at the same time maybe 250 trailers plus 1,000 or 2,000 or even 3,000 passengers. So such large vessel of 60,000 or 70,000 gross tonnage, they can simply not achieve a full navigation between Italy and Greece, or between Finland and Germany, or between Italy and Spain in full electric. Unfortunately, still is not possible. It is only possible to do a small part of such a voyage. Different, it is a different argument when you speak about the connecting an island that is a couple of miles far away. But if you speak about motorways of the sea connecting two core 20 ports, this is the situation. So we work a lot on the energy efficiency, and this is a number of projects that we have done, including the renewable energies like the solar panel for the possible extent, or the installation of a system to treat the emissions from the fossil fuel. We have installed the largest battery packs, like 5 MWh for the zero emission import, which is today the possible reality. And then we have a lot of projects to reduce the friction of the hull, because one of these hull in the sea has a square meter, maybe 8,000 square meter or 10,000, so more than a football court. This means that if there is the grass, like on the football court, this is a very bad problem for the hull resistance. So there's a lot that you can do in the submerged part of the hull. Those are the ships that we have employed on the short sea as a RoRo, which is another type of segment, but still it is about the motorways of the sea. This is the real, let's say, motorways of the sea, because instead of going on the highway, on board one of those vessels, 500 trailers can load, for example, in Livorno, and they can reach Palermo or Valencia and Barcelona instead of taking the highway. So those ships, now we took the delivery of 6 of them, and we are still waiting the delivery of the last 3, while another 3 have been already delivered for the sister company Finnlines. And those ships represent the state of the art of such a service, the RoRo, with this hybrid possibility, which is, let's say, similar to the mild hybrid in the automotive. So there is the shaft generator that produces the electricity that is connected to the main propulsion system, enabling the peak shaving of the propeller, while also granting the zero emission import. Such vessel could be charged, the battery could even be charged with the cold ironing import, but so far the discussion with the port didn't arrive to any sort of mutual understanding, as we will see. In any case, we are working in Grimaldi a lot. As also said before, we don't believe so much for our type of traffic in the LNG, but we are doing as much as we can for the electrification in terms of installing a large battery system. And we are going to reach 100 megawatt-hour capacity installed on board 18 vessels in a total right now. And those are just some data of the utilization of the battery last year. As was already touched in the presentation preceding me, today we have the ETS, the emission trading scheme. And because of the consensus we've been invited to speak in today, I would like to highlight that if you take the data, MRV 2021, which are public data, if you check only the RoRo and RoPax, which constitute the large part, which are part of the motorways of the sea, and more in general in the short sea shipping, we can say that almost 20%, 19% of the total MRV that is going to be, so if today we should pay ETS, 19% will be paid by the RoRo and RoPax operated in Europe. And considering an European an allowance at 90 euros as is today, the sector RoRo and RoPax in Europe shall surrender about 1.5 billion euro per year. Now there is the discussion about where this money should go. There is the proposal of the Commission, and there is Parliament and Council, as you can read in this slide, but there is no any clear attention to the short sea shipping, which is mostly affected by such taxation. So, if the short sea shipping is so important in the European framework, and if it is contributing so much on one way, on the other way, there is no clear indication of any support for that. So the EU Innovation Fund, so the presentation before was very clear and very well done, so I cannot repeat it so well. But what I have is the experience from the stakeholder side, and what we can say is that it is very, very difficult for ship owners to access to the fund, including when it is only the port that could be then discussed with the ship owner in terms of the benefit for both parties. For sure, ships are not seen as an infrastructure, unfortunately, even when connecting the two core ports. Access to the fund for the ships as such is very, very difficult, if not impossible. In fact, there has been 3 rejected projects where the comment has been that even if the action was overall touching the objective, but the EU added value was very limited because of the small scale of the alternative fuel solution, which is the full electric. But unfortunately, as I was saying before, the installation that we did on such ships was at the time of 3 years ago, and 2 years ago, and last year, and even today, the largest installation of batteries, including the option to be charged ashore, to be used at sea with green fuel. Unfortunately, the amount of full electric that we can do is still maybe less than 5%, which was considered not enough. And so this is shortly the presentation, which doesn't want to be a criticism, but to launch, let's say, a topic of discussion with the policymakers in this field of SEF and the sustainable shipping and in general short sea shipping for future discussion. We remain at any disposal for question and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boschetti, and I'm sure that Mrs. Marija Janeva will take account of these considerations about ship owners. And in our roadmap for this year, we are going to organize the final event of this year in Naples during the Naples Shipping Week on the 29th of September. And in that occasion, we are going to present a sort of paper for short sea shipping and motorways of the sea for the next years. And we think that these reflections about ship owners, about the deep uncertainty of the effect and the issues of cost-benefit analysis for these technologies will be a relevant part of this paper, because within our European network we have to discuss the position of ship owners and other stakeholders related to sustainable mobility and digital transformation. So thank you for your contribution, because it's relevant for us to better comprehend the implications of this new Green Deal and so on for stakeholders, for costs, and for the inflation of the prices that is increasing in these days. So we have 4 interventions in about 30 minutes. So I invite the next speakers to maintain the debate within 10 minutes, if is possible. The first is Emanuele Gesù, head of small-scale LNG of SNAM. And the LNG is a new issue for energy And we discussed about LNG also in the intervention of Marija Geneva about the financing fund of EU. But how is the development of the strategic plan of the national bio-LNG network? And if you can show to us some best practices about LNG to contribute for a better comprehension for all of us about this opportunity. You have the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Benevolo, and thanks a lot for inviting me and SNAM to this very interesting webinar. So the LNG and what I would like and what I prefer to say, the bio-LNG path has been quite long. I started to work for LNG, or better, trying to develop infrastructure, to develop indeed the use of LNG since 2011. It's more than 10 years that I'm working on that area. And I would say that has been a quite long and difficult journey, especially and for companies like us that are developing infrastructure. Because I, with a lot of attention, the intervention of Mr. Catani and Mr. Bocchetti, and I tend to agree in what they are saying. There is for sure a lot of uncertainty, and there's been a lot of uncertainty in the use of new fuel for the marine environment. However, we believe, and I strongly believe, that LNG could be a great fuel for a transition period, and the bio-LNG could be, even because it's using the same infrastructure of LNG, could be really the fuel that could push us into a sort of mix in the future that will see the bio-LNG, the ammonia, probably the H2, like the future fuel. One thing for us is very clear. Of course, we as a company are willing, as all of us, to maximize the decarbonization and try to get the objective at 2050. But as we can arrive and as we will arrive to the 2050, well, it's not so clear, but I believe that we can see some light. I believe that the European community and the Italian government, for instance, did a great job with the recovery plan, in Italian, the PNRR and the Fondo Complementare, because there's been a lot of financing program on the developing of LNG. There is liquefaction plant, there is transformation of primary hub of LNG in Italy, for instance, for Olta, Panigaglia, and probably also for Adriatic LNG. There is, you know, the support on the financing of LNG bunkering vessel. And so I think that I believe that we can have a way to manage the transition with the use of LNG and the use in the future of bio-LNG. That is probably the most important fuel in which we have to believe. And as I said before, the great advantage, for instance, for the bio-LNG compared to the H2 and the ammonia is that the infrastructure that we will build for LNG will be exactly the same that we will use for the bio-LNG, because essentially is exactly the same things, with the big difference that, as Mr. Catani said, the use of LNG, albeit is completely cancelling the NOx, SOx, and the particulate, of course, is reducing only of the 20% the emission of CO2 compared to the new, compared to diesel. Of course, we need to understand how we read, you know, the emissions, if We start from the extraction of the gas till the engine, or which kind of view we have. But I would like to say that also the big company are trying, of course, to decrease all the lack that we have in this supply chain in the gas. Anyhow, there is, I believe that is a good compromise for the environment. The LNG, and said the bio-LNG will bring the completely decrease of the CO2, and so this could be really a good way to to see and to consider the LNG and the bio-LNG like one of the fuel of the future. Because I say one, because I also strongly believe that at 2050 we will find ourselves, both the ship owner, but also the infrastructural company like SNAM that is building the infrastructure in order to support the decarbonization and, of course, then the bunkering. We believe that we will have a mix. The mix will be probably made with some very low sulfur fuel oil, could made with ammonia, could made with LNG. It really depend of the peculiarity of the country. For instance, if you look Spain, for instance, France and the Netherlands are quite advanced with the use of LNG, and in the future, I'm pretty sure about the bio-LNG. Italy has been about a bit back in the infrastructural construction, but now I believe that with the support of a company like SNAM that is going to build some micro-liquefaction plant in a barycentric position in order to serve all the port in a truck-to-ship mode, so helping the short shipping, like the Ro-Ro, the Ro-Pax. We will have availability of LNG, and another important thing is at good and affordable cost. The second type of investment that we are making is try to adapt the Panigaglia terminal in this way, and of course ALT, the floating storage and regasification unit that we have in front of Livorno, has been already modified in order to allow the charging and the refilling of the LNG carrier, then that we can make in a ship-to-ship way in the port the refueling of the vessel. Why I'm speaking about this primary hub? Because one of the big issues that we had in Italy, of course, on top of the lack of infrastructure that now is going to be solved, has been the cost of the LNG. Because essentially the LNG in Italy was much more costly, because essentially we were using the LNG of other foreign terminal like the Spain one or the France one, and then we need to add an extra cost that was the shipping of that LNG into a coastal depot, and then to add also the cost of the coastal
2 minutes, please.
Yes. And so essentially, and just to close my intervention, there is 3 fundamental points for us, like infrastructural company. We are really happy that Europe and Italy, with the different program, has started to finance the infrastructural of our country. There is, and we are considering the LNG one of the fuel mix for the future, and we strongly believe that bio-LNG, using the same infrastructure of LNG, will be really the fuel of the future for the maritime sector, in order to decrease, the environmental, to increase better the environmental effects of the use of the vessel. So thank you. I hope that I've done this in 10 minutes.
Thank you very much for this presentation, clarification about the role of LNG in our context. And another relevant issue in order to discuss sustainability and digitalization is the cooperation, the framework of cooperation. And about this, we would like to to hear something from Mr. De Marco of Varsila. Actually is a market innovation GM in CIF and fully dedicated in customer co-creation project and decarbonization initiative. So, Mr. De Marco, what is the rule of cooperation in the framework of the new era of maritime industry that we are entering and we are discussing in this afternoon?
Mr. Benevolo, first and foremost, I would like to thank you and the organization for inviting our company. We'll try to be very compact in commenting and replying your question. Indeed, as you said before, I took a note that we are assisting really these very days to a revolution. Decarbonization, IMO and Fit for 55 are presenting to the maritime industry and especially on the short sea shipping, motorway of the sea, a tremendous challenge. And how can we contribute to support the industry and to support the ship owners is really to cooperate with them to de-risking the evaluation of this challenge. Future project, new building business, retrofitting of existing fleet are really, say, a major headache for many ship owners. There are many ways that we can support in this decarbonization. There could be energy efficiency initiative that can be bring to the desk. There could be electrification, so using, as I said before, Dario Bocchetti, hybridization or short connection or other electrical efficiency tools that can improve the decarbonization. And there could be also, as a final, the alternative fuels, so zero carbon or net zero fuels that can contribute for the decarbonization. But for doing this in the proper way, because the costs are not negligible, so there are intensive capital expenditure that can need to be foreseen. Digitalization is supporting very much in this sense. So we can marry these alternatives, this way, provide digital twins of the vessel or the fleet, and try to get a clear understanding which is the current status and which will be the performance of the vessel while we are applying all these different widgets in order to reaching the decarbonization targets that the ship owner is having. And so the mixing of these different solutions can provide an interesting solution. As I said, there is not a single one that can allow achievement of the decarbonization. Can be different, can be perhaps Grimaldi can make certain kind of choice that can be different from GNV and so forth. Geographical impact can also have a tremendous let's say impact in the choice. In the Mediterranean, maybe if we look at alternative fuels, there will be certain development. Mr. Jesus before talked about LNG infrastructure. Not only, there could be also methanol that is developing in other areas. For instance, North Europe, ammonia is something that it seems to have some preferred corridor. But as I said, geography is influencing a lot. What we need to have clear in mind is that we are running a marathon, is not a sprint race. So the application will be gradual. is not something that is happening overnight, and we know that these need to be sustainable. And for having a proper sustainability, we know that we need to have a proper technological development, and we as a OEM are doing part of this job. There should be infrastructure that need to be available, and stakeholders around this table are doing so. But also economical and abundancy need to be present if we want to have a sustainability. Otherwise, we are not able to reach the final goal, that is the decarbonization. So hope to have given a quick and dirty overview of the decarbonization and our strategy, how to support the maritime industry for this great challenge.
Thank you very much for the contents, Mr. De Marco, and for the synthesis, the great synthesis of your thinking. Very useful for us and a good contribution to better comprehend the issues we are discussing. Now we have the intervention in the program of Mr. Paul Broster, who is the European Policy and Funding Advisor at the Irish Maritime Development Office, which is in the network with over 20 years of experience in the maritime and offshore renewable energy sector and the studies to support the Irish government Department of Transport. Mrs. Broster, who is our member of our network of ESN as the SPC Ireland. Thank you for your contribution. And the question is, can you tell something about Ireland's expertise and capabilities in the digital sector, and how these contribute to digital and green transition of the maritime transport system? So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benevolo, and good afternoon, everybody from Ireland. Yes, we when we talk about the digital transformation and the green transition, we're very fortunate in Ireland that we're blessed with significant resources in both areas. In terms of the green transition, we're talking about our natural resources. The offshore wind resources in the Atlantic coast around our island are enormous. And our Minister for Transport is also the Minister for Energy and Climate Change. And Minister Ryan has often termed Ireland as the potential to be the green battery of Europe. So when we talk about not only electricity, but all the alternative fuels and hydrogen, and in the future that we know, Ireland has natural resources that can play a significant role in achieving that. The other resource that we're blessed with is human resource. I think a lot of people will know the digital capabilities that have located in Ireland. We're home to some significant global companies that use Ireland as the European headquarters. And from that, Ireland has delivered significant capacity in that whole space. I think we're only seeing the emergence of that technology being used in the maritime sector. And it's something we in Ireland have been working with our research centres in this space on for a number of years now. We have a research centre in Ireland called Insight, which I believe is one of the largest data analytics research centres in Europe. They've worked for all the major telecom companies, all the major smart city initiatives. And, you know, when we talk about the area of smart ports and smart shipping and how that links into the green transformation, then we think that resource will have a significant role to play as well. I think the big challenge that we see in Ireland, and I think some of the speakers today have already referred to similar challenges in either the shipping sector or other areas, is just the alignment of the funding and the supports for all of this. You know, we can have a case where we have got huge resources, but invariably our port sector, which as we know in Ireland is vital to our economy as the trading gateways, our ports will have to develop facilities and new capacity to support this huge increase in activity in offshore. We've never had an offshore oil and gas industry in Ireland, and I think we've seen in the North Sea in Europe, a lot of the offshore wind projects have benefited enormously from that, you know, old oil and gas infrastructure. In Ireland, we'll have to build new port capacity to service these new green sources of energy, and that's a significant challenge, especially if the funding supports through CEF and other means are not aligned with the timelines and with the objectives that are required on that. So I think I think we share in Ireland the concerns of some of our other speakers that there's a huge ambition to work together to achieve these goals at an EU level. But we think not only have we all as members of ESN, as members of the maritime sector in Europe, to work together and cooperate, but a lot of the financing and funding mechanisms need to be carefully aligned to make sure that we can achieve all these ambitions as soon as possible. So I think that's probably where we would like to share from Ireland. We've significant resources and a huge appetite and interest to play a significant role in these transitions and transformations that Europe is undertaking. And we just hope that the support is available for our ports and our shipping companies to be able to do that.
Thank you very much for the intervention. And now we have the last speaker, who is Elias Infantis, senior scientist, professor of marine engineering at the Hellenic Naval Academy and coordinator of the mechanical engineering program at the University of Nicosia. And we are very proud to have Cyprus with us because is a new member of our network ESN. So we are going to have a new member, SPCC Cyprus. So welcome with us, welcome on board with in this network in which we are trying to promote short sea shipping, motorists of the sea, and the issues related to motorists of the sea, short sea shipping in the European context. And Mr. Infantis is a scientist, and he studies models and tools for the development of maritime sector and transport. So, in a sort of conclusion of our debate, how can we face the twin transition, green and digital, of the maritime transport? Which are the main models and tools we can use, we can obtain to better comprehend this transition?
Thank you, Francesco. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon to all. I would like to share my screen. I have prepared a few slides. Well, I believe that now you can see my screen, correct?
It's perfect. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to present some of CMMI's efforts to support the maritime sector to address twin transition challenges. When dealing with decarbonization, especially for the shipping sector, what we must realize is the solutions interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity. No unique solution in order to meet the requirements for significantly reduced emissions by 2030 or 2050. So starting from vessel design optimization, which also includes hull design optimization and propeller design optimization, we go to operational measures for energy efficient voyages, alternative fuels, but also renewable energy sources to secure green fueling, technical measures to improve the performance of the main and auxiliary engines, and in case we fail to avoid production of pollutants, after treatment measures. So trying to summarize, but also to highlight CMMI's projects targeting decarbonization, I would like to start with ASEST. ASEST is an autonomous, fully electric research platform and also a testing bed. A testing bed for alternative propulsion systems, including fuel cells with methanol or hydrogen, or hybrid propulsion, as well as energy management systems. Regarding biomethane, taking into consideration that biomethane plays an important role, being part of the renewable energy sources in Cyprus, we are trying to develop a virtual gas grid solution and also to investigate the marine diesel engine performance and environmental behavior when operating with biomethane as a supplementary fuel. The next effort is related to integrated ship energy flowchart model. ICEF integrated ship energy flowchart model is a hybrid approach, both deterministic and based on artificial intelligence, in order to develop the ship energy system digital twin and support vessels performance optimization. ICEF will be capable, of course, of supporting alternative fuels and propulsion systems. And finally, we have MSF 455. It is a software tool already developed by CMMI for the technical economic assessment of the EU Fit for 55 legislation package impact on EU economies. What we have to say that Fit for 55 provisions include both market-based measures and technical ones, including, for example, ramp-up of LNG availability, the use of cold iron in core ports, etc. But as already mentioned within this webinar, decarbonization is something we cannot achieve without the extensive implementation of digital solutions. We at CMMI invest in digitalization, targeting more specifically in sea vessel optimization, remote observation and monitoring, blue economy digital transformation, and intelligent marine spatial planning. For example, Pangea project aims at the development of a solution to deliver reduced service and maintenance cost through proactive maintenance planning, eco-friendly ships operation through vessel performance optimization, and early detection and mitigation of safety and health hazards. Closing my presentation, I would like to present Sea of Experience. Education and training are both sine qua non prerequisites for the twin transition. The project aims at the development of a training network in the Eastern Mediterranean region to strengthen cooperation between industry, academia, and public authorities, innovative training tools and modules for both face-to-face and online modules, and a digital platform to host the tools and the modules. Thank you for your attention.
Ifantis, and thank you, Cyprus SPC, for become a new member of our ESN network. And I think that with your effort in studying models and tools, we could upgrade our analysis. So now we are at the end of this webinar. It's not simple to make conclusions about this debate, because we have a lot of questions opened to work on in the next months. And I think that the effort we have to do is to do the right questions, because we have a lot of questions about technology, sustainability, the cost benefit analysis and so on. But I think that we have to concentrate on the right questions, because we have to obtain the right answers to this question. In the past, often happened that we discussed about some I call this some mantra. We have to do logistica. We have to do so. Actually, we have sustainability and digitalization, and it seems that all we are doing to obtain digitalization and to obtain sustainability is right, and we have to do this. I think my opinion and the opinion of ESN is that we have to study, well study and debate these issues to better comprehend that we have different solutions. We have to choose the right solutions, and public institutions have to give the right indication where the ship owners and other operators have to invest for the future with less deep uncertainty, which is a characteristic of this period. We have not only pandemic effect on the war, of the terrible war in Europe, we have also an intrinsic, as I can say, intrinsic deep uncertainty in this revolution of digitalization and sustainability, and we have we have to promote a good debate and the good studies and the good efforts to better comprehend what happens and the better solutions for our future. So in this debate, the conclusions are very open, and I think that if other members of ESN network, and thank you all obviously for the contribution, could agree with us that sustainability and digitalization could become a relevant part of our final meeting in Naples in the next months of September. So thank you all for the contribution and for the participation to this webinar. We are going to publish the presentations and registration on our website for a public share of all the information. And now we are going to prepare the final paper to present in Naples the 29th of September, and after to present to the European institutions in Brussels to propose the contribution of ESN network to the development of short sea shipping and motorists of the sea. So thank you, and see you soon in Naples.
Yeah.
Please turn on the camera. If you can open the camera, we can have a photo of the desktop. Thank you. Just a moment for the photo.
Okay.
If the organization.
I can just do Anthony to make a picture.
Anthony, could make a picture, please? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.